But at the end of the day, man, like, in any business, everything's your fault as the business owner. And, if you have managers, then you can place some of that responsibility on them. But it all comes down to training, support, and ultimately, reflecting on mistakes and giving them an opportunity to fix it.
Welcome to the Painter Growth Podcast, where we help you scale your painting company in record time. Join us as we explore sales, marketing, hiring, finances, leadership, and more, everything that you need to know to scale and grow your painting business. I hope you enjoy and subscribe. What's up, everybody? Mike Hickman here, founder of PainterGrowth.com, and you guys are listening to the Painter Growth Podcast. And we have round two for you guys, the man, the myth, the legend, the owner of Dripjobs, Tanner Mullen. What is up, my man?
Boom. Happy to be here. Happy to be here, brother.
Dripjobs taking off. Always recommend people use it. Love to see that. You're crushing it, scaling, and you're managing a painting business. I mean, most people can't even just manage a painting business, let alone a scaling, bootstrapped software, startup. So how do you do it?
Okay. So, man, it's not as bad as you think when you have great people. So for me, it took a while, but the painting business could crush me if that wasn't operational. I have very lean process in the painting business. I work probably 10 hours a week. Recently, I've been hitting estimates on Mondays to beef up the pipeline. But most of the time, I'm dispatching from the office. I'm game planning, preparing, setting up the teams the right way, anticipating, droughts in the schedule. But more so, I'm communicating with my leaders all day. And it's not all day. It's just, we have 12 employees. Usually we run 3 crews, and the 4 people that I put in charge, which are the 3 crew leaders and my project manager / estimator, Chris, and my office admin. We're all communicating throughout the day, whether that's through text, whether that's phone calls. And really it's just, leadership development. I'm there. I call myself central dispatch, as their resource, and what I've taught them over the years is to figure it out. I think it's interesting. People come into, a leadership role from, maybe having experience working for someone else, and they just come with such fear. And it's like, hey, is it okay if we do this? I'm like, dude, figure it out. You do it, and then we'll learn from it. I trust you, which we've talked about. So, for me, man, like, the painting business could crush me and ruin my schedule if it wasn't optimized the way it is, which allows me to handle Dripjobs in a way that allows me to enjoy working on Dripjobs without feeling stress in that area too.
One thing that's interesting that I kind of just noticed as you were talking about your business is that you're not running your painting business with the same mentality that a lot of other guys are, which is, let me see how big I can scale this thing. Seems like you've kind of reached like a happy level that just kind of runs. It probably, pays you great, but it's like that level that you can manage successfully without it causing undue stress and tension in your life.
100% without upper management. I don't need that operator right now. And it's awesome. It's super lean. It's almost like a virtual painting business in terms of the sales process because of the way I set up having Chris do estimates and doubling as a project manager, to where he's not really a closer. He's kind of just going there, educating, taking pictures, taking measurements, and sending that to us in the office. So I mean, from that perspective, one thing that I love about employees and the employee model is there's ownership there, so I don't really need a full-time project manager to manage 3 crews because they're my employees, number one. So there's a certain level of ownership that they are required to operate with because they wear our logo, right? They know our culture, our vision, our standards. And then on the flip side of that, what I love about this business, and not many people think of it this way, but my customers get paid by the hour. Actually, they're free to be backdoor managers, right? If something were to go detrimentally wrong on a job site, they'll be the first ones to call you and let you know. And I love that because it's just homeowner accountability. It's one of the greatest gifts in this business is at the end of the day, I have eyes on the job that have the job's best interest in mind. So, and that's helped me tremendously. There's been times in my journey of owning a business where a customer would call me and say, Tanner, these guys aren't back from lunch yet, right? And ultimately, that was a hard conversation to have. But at the end of the day, it's one of the most beautiful things about this business. And you never want to rely on it. But at the end of the day, it's there.
And you can use that feedback. If you start getting a lot of it, Then you can start looking at, is it your team? Is it you as the leader? Are you showing up the way that you should be? Are
Sure.
you giving off those vibes that tell your painters that they can be late for lunch? They don't have to communicate with the homeowner at all. It all comes back to you.
That was a big thing, is that homeowner communication, right? We had this issue, I mean, with one of our managers where he just never communicated with the customer at the end of the day, which was really hard to like narrow down until someone started mentioning it, because ultimately they would do their work, pack up, like say a brief goodbye and leave. And it left the customer with a lot of questions. So what we realized, like, people really need to be babied in the process. There's some customers that are so edgy about what to expect. Like, here's an example. Like, they have an idea of how much time the job's going to take. So the problem is that they don't do this for a living. So when they see like a ton of prep work and nothing getting painted, they're like, oh my God, this is a lot of painting that needs to be done. There's no way they're going to get done by Friday. But they're failing to realize that the way we move when things are prepped as professionals is way different than what they've done as a homeowner. So they only have their own, I don't know, their own experience to reference when it comes to time, right? So, what I've worked on in training my team is like, listen, you have to update the customer in an uncomfortable way. So it limits the burning questions that they have, right? Because again, I'm not talking about all customers. I'm talking about the ones that you just know are going to give you trouble. So for me, it's like, hey, at the end of the job, we want to give them an outline of what we did, what we're going to do, and the expectation of when it's going to be complete, because those three things are something that we find everyone wants to know. So our team is like, again, front lines trained to be communicators first, project manager second.
What do you think of the concept of having your project manager just default give the homeowner a text update at the end of every day? Do you think that's unnecessary, or like, do you think that's
Yeah.
a good idea?
Listen, if anyone is a nut about communication, it's me. That's what the essence of good business is. You can never over communicate regarding the status of a project. Here's a good example. I just quote unquote hired someone to help with UI design, which is the design and feel of Dripjobs, right? And I sent him a little bit of a scope of work yesterday around, like, I don't know, 7 o'clock. Okay. It's now 4 o'clock PM, and I haven't gotten a word back of feedback of my email. And this was a trial run to see how good he would do. And I'm already thinking I'm not working with this guy, because it's an indication. And he could come back with the most beautiful looking thing, but there was no communication. He could have just shot a quick update. Hey, reviewing everything, going to get you something. And as a buyer, I'm very critical. And I understand that at the very least, we are trained as buyers now in the market to receive communication. And it's not so much a luxury anymore. It's more of a necessity, because if we don't receive communication, we assume something's wrong, or we assume that we're not getting the value that we deserve, right? It's like Amazon. If you order something on Amazon, you're expecting some sort of confirmation, or you're freaking out. Or if you fill out a lead form, if you fill out like a free checklist, all these marketers, right? You don't get something in the email, you're thinking you got scammed, right? So
Almost
at the end
like
of the day,
you're waiting for a 1 second reply from them, but the longer that you don't get that reply and it dwells with you, you just have more and more time for that, like, that uncomfortness to like
absolutely.
build within you.
At the end of the day, even though I'm managing all these things, it's important to me to check in on my customers. Like, we only run, we're only doing 3 jobs, 4 jobs a day. So I have no problem making quick, hey, how's the job going, phone calls as the owner still at this stage of my business, which ultimately I know who to call and who not to. There's some customers you just know are just chill. They're like, whatever, you don't have to touch them. Then you got the ones that get upset when you have to reschedule the job, even if it's been pouring rain all week and you have to reschedule the job. They're upset, like they don't know, like, that we have other jobs that are getting delayed, and you just know that, like, they're high maintenance, right? So I think there's a skill set involved in managing high maintenance customers, and what we find is that communication is the anti venom.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, have you ever had one of those projects where every day you show up or your painters show up and the homeowner's got a list taped to their door?
List, blue tape, and I think what we've realized is that most of these people are utilize that control as a way to, I don't know, handle stress in some way, or deal with something they got going on in their life, and it's an opportunity for them to feel like they're in control. And again, like, we've seen every type of customer you could possibly see, or at least I have. So again, when we start seeing these things happen, over communicate, over deliver. I had a gentleman, we did a color consultation for him, And when you're a leader, it's all your fault, everything. I mean, you can get mad at somebody for not like painting the right way. Like, for example, like not, if your standards caulking and taping, but then you have to ask yourself, did you put them in a proper training? Like, did you assess them on the skill set? Did you get SOP out to them and have them agree to it? And it's like, if you dive that deep, then ultimately, if you can look in the mirror and say no, then how could you hold someone accountable? You really can't. You sound like a hypocrite. He was getting iron ore, a beautiful color. But when we delivered the paint, on the label, they put that little sticker on it. And something about the way it looked, he called freaking out. He's like, you will not put this on my house. You will not charge me for more. I didn't want anything with gray in it. And in my head, I'm thinking like, okay, my guys are starting a job tomorrow. I could spar with this guy and say, okay, we already ordered 2 gallons of very expensive paint. Okay. And he wasn't having it. He went on this whole tangent about how he doesn't like gray. So me, as a trained professional who understands the game, I know that I had to just eat the $100 and overcompensate for this guy. Because if I would have sparred with him, he felt he was right. I knew I was right because the way the color looked, but he just wasn't having it. He wanted this other black color that he had seen on HGTV or whatever the situation is. But I didn't want to send my team into an environment that was already hostile from the jump. So for me, like, gauging that, being up to speed and just understanding, like, you have 2 choices. I could try to squeeze $100 out of this guy, or I can have him feel like he owes me. And I'd rather go into the relationship like that and then over deliver without the expectation of anything in return. So, there's a little piggy bank of just like, eat it money.
Yeah. I think any business owner has to consider that, not on every job, right? If you're eating that on every single job, then you probably should look at yourself and,
yeah,
what you're doing.
and
But
it
like,
sucks because
yeah,
the customers that complain, right? The ones that give you a hard time are the ones that get that benefit. And that's not the message that we want to send to our nice customers. But at the end of the day, we're already locked into an agreement, right? It's almost like, it's not like we can get out of this thing. So, lessen the blow.
yep. Just for fun, tell me about the worst project you guys have ever done. Not the worst,
Worst project.
In whatever definition.
No, I got right off the top of my head. I mean, it was a customer that I quoted the job off of photos. If this is just when we began doing virtual estimating, and Chris go out and just take photos, no measurements, right? So this was me trying to eyeball this house.
You didn't have
the
production
questionnaire
right
I gave, no, I didn't. And if I did, this wouldn't happen. So so he just took pictures. It was like 5 or 6 pictures of this house, and trying to put together this house through his photos was incredibly difficult. I don't know what it was, but like the architecture was so different. And I don't know. I kind of just looked at it and I thought, that's not too bad. Like it's gonna be a 5-day project, right? So 5-day project, I quoted it for 10 grand, right? Usually that's like my 5-day par for one crew of 4. That's a $10,000 job. We're profitable. All right. So once that job and then this was me having to train Chris on like, dude, we need to know, do we need a boom lift on this job? Do we need, or is the boom lift going to fit? Like, these are all the questions that he had to learn how to assess for me doing quotes in the office so I can accurately get the price out. So long story short, we start the job. Day 1, my project manager, Shamel's like, when's the boom coming? I said, what do you mean, when's the boom coming? It looked like you could do it from ladders. What's the issue? So I'm like, all right, well, let me see. So I'm like, all right, well, we'll get a boom lift. What do you think you need it for? 2 days? 2 days. Cool. 2 days go by. We're struggling. We're still on soffits, Mike. I mean, we're not even hitting body yet. We're still working soffits because of the angle of this house. Not only that, when they did the color consultation, they 3-toned the house. So they had soffit, they had hardy board, and they had stucco. And I didn't check the damn color sheet until the day before and realized that it was going to be 3 tones. So that slows down things tremendously. And normally I charge for that, but I'm like, let it go because I should have caught it. I'll eat it, whatever. So 2 days go by. We're still on soffits. 3 days go by. 4 days go by. 5 days go by. Dude, we had this boom out there for 7 days. That's $2,500.
Like $1,200 a day or something.
It's like, well, if you do it for a week, it's not too bad, but it's still $2,500. So now we're at $7,500. Okay. Job was supposed to be done in 5 days. Here we go into the second week. And I mean, you name it, rain, picky customer, team frustration, arguments back and forth because I'm putting pressure on them to finish. So if you do that, and anyone listening to this knows, like when you give your team pressure from the top, they if they don't know how to absorb that pressure the right way, they can fall out of line. So you got to be careful. So I was already stressed out. So like, this is a loss, so goes into a 13-day job, which ultimately was about a $2,500 loss for us. And just that whole time, bro, like it wasn't the fact that we lost money. It was what we lost in addition to the money, which was the opportunity cost of other jobs that we could have done during that time. So it wasn't just a $2,500 loss. It was the usually $4,000, $5,000 profit that crew could have produced elsewhere. Right. It was the culture that got dented because of the arguments. It was the morale that got crushed because of things that got rained on. So, I mean, this was just a nightmare project, but at the end of the day, I had to gain control. I had to say, you know what, this is my fault. And I think ownership and accountability, one of the topics that we want to discuss today, at the end of the day, it was my fault. And I was starting to place that fault on my manager, Shamel. And I was like, you need to get this done. What are you guys doing? What are you guys doing? He's like, you need to come out here. He's like, what you need to do, Tanner. That's what happened.
Yeah. I mean, we've all had, I always like to call it like the house from hell, right? Like as soon as I said that, what's the worst house? I didn't even need to like describe it to you anymore because you just knew that like house from hell rose to the top of your head, right? So
Yeah.
I think everyone, you say, hey, what was your house to hell? Like I had this one project. It was a big stucco exterior. And just like you said, everything that could go wrong did go wrong. It was towards the end of the season, so we were rushing. I had like a painter walk off site. Every single day, the homeowner comes end of the day with a notepad on the front door with all of the things that we haven't done yet. I actually fell through an awning and fell like 10 feet onto a concrete slab. I dislocated my wrist. We had to replace the awning. We had a painter who was, I found out later, stoned the whole time. I'm sure a lot of guys listening have experienced that. Yep. He puttied all these like 100-year-old windows, but he left thumbprints in all the putty. And that stuff, when it dries, it's like hard as a rock.
Oh no!
And so I had to belt sand all that, and I'm scratching the windows. And my painters also painted. If anyone lives in one of the northern states, those old wooden storm windows. They painted the outsides of all the storm windows as well, so they wouldn't fit back in the house. Yeah. So needless. Oh yeah. And then when we're collecting payment at the end, the customer's like, "Yeah, I think you've only earned half." I was like, "You're kidding me." I was like 23 years old. I may have cried on their front step.
Dude. Yeah. I mean, but for me, I mean, that's a bad one. For me, like at this stage, I think gotta get to a point within that chaos where you understand that you're already at a loss. How much more do you want to how much more of a ripple do you want this to be going forward? Like, so the mindset is let's get through it. Got a tough customer. Let's get through it. We'll get through it. We'll bend over backwards. We'll do what needs to be done because the beauty of this job is there's always another one. Well, hopefully, but ultimately, one of the cool things about this industry is that like, it's not just a different project. Like you get a new customer, like a great customer can increase morale immediately. Like my guys always call me and tell me when they have an awesome customer, like, oh, she's so cool. They brought us cookies and donuts. It's funny. They have a cool thing in our group chat where they have like lunch wars to see who can get their customer to buy them lunch. And they send pictures of them hanging out with the customer, eating lunch. Like, and that's the beauty of it is that it could flip like a switch. So look, man, you got to realize if you're doing 200 and 300 jobs a year, which we're doing around 300, you're going to run into it. So get ready.
So one of the things that you said earlier, and a theme that I wanted to come back to a couple times today is you taking accountability, or I'm actually going to change that word. I'm going to say responsibility for what happened on site, right? So there was some misquoting that may have happened. And then that frustration was felt by your project manager, by your painters, by the homeowner. And instead of you saying, hey, this is the project manager's fault, you accepted responsibility. Tell me about that.
It's either a lack of training or a lack of support or a lack of awareness of who you got in the role. And so, for me, at the end of the day, are we perfect in those areas? No. I don't think it's okay for people to make the same mistake over and over again. generally speaking, I have grace. We don't have a major training facility where our painters go through, and most of what they learn is on site. That's why for me, it's like, okay, well, if I know that to be true in my business, then I need to hedge that with character, because character is something that I can work with, right? If somebody makes a mistake, I can work with good character, but without good character, it's really hard for me to help them. So that's the focus on the initial hire. But at the end of the day, man, like, in any business, everything's your fault as the business owner. And, if you have managers, then you can place some of that responsibility on them. But it all comes down to training, support, and ultimately, reflecting on mistakes and giving them an opportunity to fix it. Now, I think everyone deserves a second chance. I've been in a position where I've given people enough chances to know who's taking advantage of me and who's taking advantage of the opportunity. And not making a decision is also your fault as well. I've had plenty of people who should not have been around as long as they were, and that affected everyone. So much to dive into there, but
Yeah. So
experience
how
and,
about how about that? I'm gonna straight up say, that excuse. This painter, when I hired him, he said he had 10 years of experience. We've been working with him for a few months. That seems not to be the case. Like how, now the owner's blaming the painter for misleading. How would you deal with that situation?
man, I mean, at the end of the day, it's situational. I think, is this someone that you would say is in charge, or just kind of like a painter?
Just a painter.
Just a painter. I mean, at the end of the day, it's always like, I do place some of that responsibility to oversee on the people that are running the job, of course, and I think it's always going to go to them. My question to them would be, did you give them a set of tasks to do? And, were you overseeing those tasks? I had an example here today. Shamel had told me that one of our new guys, Dylan, was tasked yesterday to cut in the inside of the pool deck, and he cut in the outside of the pool deck, which the inside's harder. And he had a plan in place. And one of the things that I said to him, I said, okay, well, you're upset about that, but the whole day he was cutting in the outside of that pool deck, and you were up in the boom lift doing, your thing. You didn't think to go oversee him, knowing that he's been with us for 2 months and he still needs to be checked, and ultimately I can only just coach them on what I would have done in that situation. Would have been, I would have set him on the task. And of course you got to oversee it. You got to check what he's doing. The hardest thing that I've learned with getting painters to be managers is they're used to just focusing on their task. So you picture like a horse, just in his, with his little blinders on. And you're training that horse to not only worry about their own race, but to worry about what every other horse is doing, because they're leading the pack. So the painters, which I believe to be the best project managers who deserve it, the ones that take it serious, can communicate, their biggest blunder, the hardest thing for them to learn, is to stop what they're doing and step back and walk around the job site and check everyone else. And that takes time, and we find that, man, if there's ever been any problems on our job site, it's simply because the person who's in charge, again, isn't a project manager by nature. They're a painter who is learning to become a manager.
Yeah. And they get, it's easy when you start painting for the day. It's easy to just get in that habit of producing the whole day. You get in the zone, maybe you listen to podcasts,
Yeah,
maybe you listen to the Painter Growth podcast,
maybe
right?
you should.
And you just go and you just crush it, and you just crush the whole day. And then you're like, oh shoot, I had some other
I
responsibilities.
have people I'm responsible for, right? I got it. But it's interesting. When I was managing a paint job, this was natural to me. I would set someone on a task. I would set someone else on a task. I would set someone else on a task. And then I would do my task with a timer in my brain, knowing what Joe should have accomplished by now, with a timer in my brain what Chris should have gotten done by now. And I'm always thinking of their next task. That's what leaders do. That's what the best managers do, because they understand, their role. And this is a very hard thing to teach. So again, that's again an area of bringing the entire project together. Because what we'll find is that, their task is done, which they usually take the lead task, whether that's spraying or just doing the big task. And they find that their support team, who was supposed to get things done, we're lagging along the way, and the next thing can't get done, and that has to get into tomorrow, and then there's always tomorrow, and it's like, trying to optimize the job site is a big one.
When you're training painters, do you ever help set goals with them, in terms of like, this is what you should be producing by lunchtime, like those types of like
Sure.
micro goals?
You want to give if I'm on a job site, as if I were managing the job site, which I did for, a year, it was, you use those as little milestones, like by lunch, I want that done, or by the end of the day, we need to get this done. At this level, it's the project manager saying, hey, today we need to get this job done. So, and then whatever they do from there is going to be, them doing what I just said. So in terms of bringing on a new painter and saying, hey, like in terms of skill set, this is what I expect out of you. I'm at a stage now personally where I don't really bring in anyone without experience, because we mentioned earlier, with drip jobs and everything, we have enough of a solid team where I don't need to bring in people without experience. They slow us down. There was a time where that was all I had, and we had people that work with us now that had no experience, but we only really hire once every maybe twice a year now, because of the core group I have just personally is just so solid.
Yeah. I mean, you don't run and don't take this negatively at all. You don't run the biggest business ever, but it's really cool what you've done in terms of being able to run it from a time perspective. Like being
Not
able
never,
to,
never tried to run the biggest bit. I love the optimization of 3 crews, and I took my time at 2 crews. There was never a rush for me to get to 3. It was like
yeah,
natural. And I think natural progression is the best strategy in any business. You never want to hit the lottery and not know how to manage money. You just don't know what to do with it. You don't know how to respect it, right? So for me, dude, I had 1 crew of 4 for like 2 years. Then I finally organically grew to 2, because one of the guys that I felt could be a manager. And then that was 2 years of 2 crews. And I learned the game of 2 crews. I studied it. Like, I knew timing. I knew how many jobs I needed. I knew how many estimates I had to do. And then natural progression occurred. 3 crews. Cool. Now we're managing 3 crews. And now I'm at a season where natural progression is happening, where it's going to be 4. And I think that's where we're going to sit. That'll get us right to about 1.8 million a year. That'll be perfect for me to slip a GM in to take over. And sit back and just again focus on leadership. Most of the reason why I'm going to 4 crews this hopefully first quarter of next year is simply because I want to give someone who deserves an opportunity to be a manager and a raise an opportunity. That's really the only reason. I mean, for me, I owe it to them. I think for me, he's a great person. He's a great painter, and there's no one else around my area that has any sort of culture similar to this. It's my responsibility, and that's it.
Yeah, I love that. One of the, I feel very strongly, like if you believe in your company and you believe that what you're providing is the best that is out there, then it is your responsibility, it's your duty to get that, in front of as many customers as possible, to get that customer to buy, or in this case, to give this employee the opportunity to be a leader in this organization.
You owe it to him.
So what are you doing differently in terms of the marketing and management and organization as you go from 3 to 4 crews? Is there anything that you're scaling up, or anything that you are doing differently? I know there's a lot of guys listening who are trying to add another crew at whether it's a second or a third or a fourth. So what are you going to do differently?
Capitalizing on opportunity, having a dialed in pricing structure now, which has been great with production rates. It's interesting. I build drip jobs like, with, I lost that word. I build drip jobs in parallel with my painting business growth, which is super fun because, I'm like, cool, let's build production rates. Now I'm using production rates. Like, I love that because it gives us the ability to have, consistent pricing, which is like, what other industry where you don't have consistent pricing? I truly believe, Mike, that painting business pricing is the hardest thing to price in any home service because of the different substrates and areas. You're not just dealing with square footage. You're dealing with, linear footage. You're dealing with area. You're dealing with, ceiling square footage. I mean, that's why it's so tricky. And what that does is it creates inconsistency in the sales, and everything should be proportionate in this business. So again, capitalizing on opportunity, pricing accurately is all a big key. Taking customers through. I thought about this earlier today. I'm like, there's some companies who don't use our software that their customers, if there's 5 different customers, they all get a different experience. They all get a different greeting on the phone. They all get a different, intake process. Some customers have to sit and wait for the guy to get a pen and paper. Some customers have to text the contractor their information. Some of them have to get redirected to their website that they have to Google to find it. and submit a form that goes to an email for them to get responded to 2 days from now. Like, and then some of them get, a phone estimate, some of them get an in-person estimate, some of them get, a written estimate on paper. And then some, I mean, like, again, like getting that system consistent and synchronized and taking people through like a conveyor belt, is beautiful because it takes the pressure off. It's just like, okay, outputs and inputs now. Scale up the ads, great, more work, easy. So that's kind of been, the focus, and that's one of my passions.
So, I mean, if I could distill that down into as simple terms as possible, it's literally just about creating repeatable systems that are streamlined and scalable. I know that's
but you know what, dude? People hear that so much, bro, that they block that out.
Yes, buzzwords.
That doesn't mean anything to anyone. And it's not, no offense to you. It's just like what I try to do is like break that down. Is like a system is exactly what I said in terms of like, here's how we sell Dripjobs, right? I'm going to give you this because this is so simple. Maybe people can use this in the painting business and use it as a similarity. We get someone that's interested in Dripjobs, or we approach someone that's interested in Dripjobs. What we boil it down to is one system that sets the tone for the entire company, which is the intake of a customer, right? So the intake of a customer is where it all starts. This kicks off your sales process. This should be the best part of the entire journey. And what I described just now was there's 3 different ways it happens. If someone listening to this is, you're going to laugh. You're going to say, that's me. If someone calls you and you have to stop what you're doing and write down their information, that's a bad system. If someone calls you and you have to have them text you their first name, last name, email, phone number, address, that's a bad system. If someone has to go to your website to fill out a form and it gets dropped into an email and you don't respond to them for 24 hours, that's a bad system. And what the focus of about creating systems is to have the most optimized way to do something. And that's just one system, right? So for us with Dripjobs, you're sending that link, they're filling out the form, 7 automations take place. It's a text message, an email, a contact creation, a deal creation, a notification to you, all in one shot. Now that you have a system, the most beautiful thing about this, I'm going to bring this all together because I had trouble with this early on, but what's great about this system is you can have someone else manage and oversee it because it's optimized. So you found the most optimal way to do appointment creation in your company. Great. Now move on to how do we optimize estimating? Well, right now you have no system for it. You eyeball it, or you guess, or you just come up with some random number. So that should be the focus of how you can get someone else to do something without your own knowledge or experience or something that you can't count or quantify.
Yeah. So back to the Dripjobs intake. So when you're selling Dripjobs, you focus on one pain point and get clients to come schedule an appointment basically to try to solve that one pain point.
I mean, ultimately, there's so many pain points if that is a pain point, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we don't want to overwhelm them and just say like, okay, well, guess what? We're gonna start off by solving this major pain point that you probably don't even know you have, but it frustrates you every day. And then from there, guess what? We're also going to solve the pain point of following up with customers. Oh, you have leads? Great. You're not following up with them, are you? Cool. That's a pain point we're going to solve. And it's just the whole journey of Dripjobs is to just solve all the pain points. And like, we're not even doing anything crazy yet. We're just the baseline software that's going to allow you to like systemize appointment settings, systemize follow-up, systemize proposal creation, systemize long-term nurturing, systemize job scheduling, systemize updates to customers, systemize review garnishing. So it's like, these are all areas and systems that you need to have, you should have, you probably don't have. And a software is going to give you that.
Dude, it's kind of ironic.
What's up?
You wouldn't be able to run Dripjobs while running your painting company if you didn't have Dripjobs.
100%. 1,000%.
You ever thought of it like that before?
You're absolutely right. Of course. Dude, my painting business is not in my head anymore. It used to be. It's so like, I don't think we could, this is a whole different conversation, but the depression and anxiety and stress that comes from some of these business owners look, the greatest fear for most people is a fear of regret and missed opportunity, right? Like, it's like, oh man, I had a customer call me on Monday. I got busy. Kids came at me screaming when I got through the door. I totally forgot they called, and that could have been a full house repaint. And now they're already upset with me. Do you know, I had a gentleman that I had passed by in the neighborhood I was living at. He was doing some fence work. Okay. I stopped by. He gave me his card. I said, hey, in a couple months, I'm going to need a fence estimate. Could you please, give me an estimate in a couple months? And he's like, yeah, take my card. Cool. I saved that card. That card was important to me because I was like, I seen his work. He seemed like a good guy. I'm going to call that guy. All he's got to freaking do is show up. And let me tell you something, dude. I called that guy. He said, I'm going to call you back, brother. And just me knowing the game, he didn't, nothing. Never called me back. Never called me back. And at the end of the day, that was an indication to me of what I'm going to get. And, all he had to do was show up. He could have quoted me almost anything as long as it was semi-reasonable because I trusted him. I saw his work. I met him. Missed opportunities. And It's out of my head now. I know we have a system for it. There's nobody slips through the cracks. No lead slips through the cracks. No phone call. When someone calls our business line and Teresa, the office admin, maybe she works from home. So maybe she's doing something. Maybe she's walking a dog. I don't know. She misses the phone call. We have a text message that goes out with a link to book the appointment. So we don't miss that opportunity in the event that she's not physically answering the phone. So again, even just capitalizing on opportunity is a system that, is going to help you scale.
Yeah, I love that. I'm a huge proponent of that, of getting things out of your head. Like when I talk to my team, or my team talks to me and they like give me things to do because, if you have a team, they should be also giving you things to do. If I tell them like, if it's not in my calendar, it is not happening. Right. If they want to assign something to me, it needs to get in my calendar or else it just won't happen because I'm got a million other things to do. So yeah, the best system is something that can get out of your brain and in a place that you will see it when it becomes time for you to do something. Otherwise, everything else should not.
Do you know how many people, here's another example. Do you know how many people I forgot to actually schedule them a start date before I had Dripjobs? I would actually sell the job a month ago, get a deposit, forget I got a deposit, have to go into my bank statement and look at what I deposited for $500. They don't have the image. So I got to call the bank and like say, hey, can you send me images of the last 10 deposits I had to see? Cause I never logged it anywhere. I was like, okay. So I know people are listening like, yeah, me too. Cause it's just reality. And then they would call me and say, hey, Tanner, when am I scheduled? And I'd be like, 1 second. And I didn't have a good system for scheduling jobs. I don't know what it was. I was using Apple Calendar for it and Google Calendar for appointments and just forgot, so many things, man.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, production scheduling is huge. It's funny. Like back when I was running my painting business, I accepted pretty much only checks, and I used a deposit book deposit book. So I would deposit like a handful of checks, and I would write down on this like carbon copy deposit book like the names, the amounts.
Yeah.
Didn't want to pay that 3.5%.
Anything to say.
Yeah,
I see it as like the gas to get there, right?
Yeah. Exactly. But now my mindset on that has changed. The efficiency is so much more worth it and the convenience for the customer. So I'm not trying to make this a sales pitch for Dripjobs, but Dripjobs does production scheduling as well.
It does.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, there's no set. We're just I'm just a painting contractor talking about a good software that I use, man. This is it. At the end of the day, look, more power to you if you can find something else. This isn't a sales pitch. And you know what? At the end of the day, I kind of want it to be because if you're struggling, you need it. It's one of those things and you could trust us if this is a direction you want to head in. But yeah, production scheduling, work orders. I mean, think about every aspect of a project, Mike, from start to finish. It's the intake, it's the greeting, it's the proposal, it's the waiting of if they're going to accept it. So it's the follow-ups, it's the acceptance, it's the acceptance, it's the color consultation, it's the scheduling of the project, it's the project being in progress, it's the invoicing, it's the project complete, right? I mean, taking one person through that entire cycle is exhausting, let alone maybe 10 customers a month on a small scale, right? So not having something that helps you visualize those stages, you're at an extreme disadvantage. And that's, again, why we built it in a way where you could see the job board. Back in the day, Mike, these old contractors, they'd have what's on your wall right there. See that whiteboard? And you know what they do? They put the stages on the whiteboard, right? And they say, okay, in progress, like, waiting for deposit, like all that. So this isn't anything new. We just digitized it and automated the movement. So instead of erasing it and writing it, we just automate it to the next stage.
An exercise that I like to do when looking at different processes within my business or my client's business is just ask a question: would this system work if we had to do it 10 times more often, or if our business was 10 times bigger? right?
Right.
So, client comes in, it's like, oh, how are you keeping
Great
track
point.
of your scheduling right now? It's like, oh, I got it all in my head. Like, I know the Johnson job starts on Monday, Frederickson, they're on Wednesday, Thursday, and the next week we're starting Joanne's exterior.
Yeah.
It's like, okay,
Yeah.
well, now imagine doing that with 80 jobs.
No,
How would
don't
you
even
do that?
say that. Imagine if you had to go into the hospital and your team's out without work.
Yeah,
How do
there's
they
there's
know the
many
jobs?
different situations where that could happen. But even if it's, regardless, it has to be a system that can grow ahead of where your business currently is, or else
And
that system will
it's
be
such
the
a good
limiting
point.
factor of your business.
Such a good point. You know how many people tell me that they're not ready for a software like that? Well, ultimately, it's better to get one before you need it. You know,
You
it really
have to get
is.
it before you need it, or
It should
else
be
like
a day
you're gonna,
one expense.
yeah.
Should be like, oh, I got to get my LLC and a CRM. You got to get your
Or
acronyms.
the clients will tell me, we really want to join your coaching program, but we just gotta get make a little bit more money first. It's
Oh,
like,
I
well,
forgot there's people that listen to this that aren't in your coaching program. What a detriment. Oh, well, the good news is if you join Mike's coaching program, you get a very, very special Drip Jobs offer. We're not going to tell you what it is because you have to meet with Mike.
yeah,
But you need to get into coaching. So Lucas mentioned this on the last podcast. 3 things: marketing, software, and a coaching program. That will help you get to the goal.
yeah. Another thing I like to say is, on another side, so this is systems oriented. If you go now to your level as a leader, I often like to say that your business will only grow to your ability. Sorry, I'm going to rephrase that. Your ability to grow your company is limited only by your ability to delegate more and more complex tasks. So as your business grows, the tasks that you are
100%.
doing as a leader become more and more complex. And once you can no longer delegate those tasks efficiently, then that's going to be your job. And that's just going to be where you're stuck.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many things that a solo painterpreneur has to do that aren't getting done, but they feel the pressure of having to do it. So let's real quick. I don't want to leave this call and not talk to that guy because I love that guy. That's the one guy that's starting out. I mean, the sales guys will figure it out. The marketing guys will figure it out. But if you garnished a few people on this podcast that are, they got a brush and a dream and they're like, where do I start with this delegation thing? Part of the reason that they say that is because they're used to doing the painting. So them removing themselves from the painting is almost like me and you, Mike, removing ourselves from the sales of our businesses. This is we have to have some empathy for those individuals. So I'm going to extract your answer. I want to know your answer to that. What do you say to the guy who is painting and you know how important painting is to them? What do you like? One guy, but he needs to start delegating. What's your advice to them? I want to know.
I mean, we got to first decide if that's something we want to do. Right? If we're happy painting, there's no shame in just wanting to be a painter.
Well, I tell them they can continue to paint their grandmom's house if they want, but
yeah, it's a good living, right?
if you have to do it.
You can make good money, but it comes, you get older, your body isn't working as good, you slow down,
Yeah.
you can't produce as much anymore, like your body catches up to you. So at some point, you
Yeah.
should want to, build a business a little bit so that you can make a little bit of money and not quite work so hard. So first step is a helper, right? You got to
Yeah.
get someone on site with you so you can get a little bit of experience managing someone else. It doesn't have to be a full-time helper. They don't have to have a ton of experience, but just get used to having someone working with you. Teach them. Practice skill transfer, or the art of skill transfer. Teach them how to be better, how to be more efficient. Literally things that the things that they don't know.
Yeah.
You'll be surprised how little people know, coming into it. So just try to teach them, and then you'll be surprised how quickly they catch on. Painting an interior isn't particularly difficult. Once they're proficient, now if you have enough work, the next step is find another helper, find another painter to bring on with them. They got a crew of 3, you and 2 people, right? Do the same thing, develop them, transfer skills, talk to them, coach them, teach them. And sooner than not, you will have a crew that can now operate independently. So you're not going to leave for a full day at the start. Maybe you just want to leave to go do an estimate, right? Go leave to grab lunch. Then maybe you set them up in the morning, come back at noon and help them finish the day. Then before you know it, you're going to be gone. Set them up in the morning, leave the whole day, go do sales all day, come back, help them close it up, and just keep
And you
progressing
do
from
that
there.
cycle one time, you are going to be hooked. You're going to be like, whoa, some income was just produced without me producing it. And there is risk, right? You're risking your reputation. You're risking it not being done right. But the mindset is you transition yourself to be like, okay, I'm the project manager. Like at the end of the day, your standard's so high. You're not going to let someone come in and you're not going to sell a poor product. You got to
Mhm.
be okay with them making mistakes. But I personally think the only thing that I would hit on, which that was great, but one thing that I would hit on is hiring with the intent of what that move is, because you're not going to just get lucky. And I think that's another thing that is, if you talk about systems, the hiring system needs to be strategic. It can't just be a random approach. You can't just hope that you meet someone at Sherwin-Williams that comes into your business with the mindset of they're going to run a crew. I also want to make it clear, someone working by themselves and making hourly wage is not appealing. So the mindset to me should be hire two people at one time, have them battle
Mhm.
in a passive way to see who earns the right to be named crew leader. And instead of sending one person in to do the workload, I think two would be best. And then you, as the business owner, Mike, I'm sure you probably would agree with this. Like, you kind of want to like wean yourself out, right? You want to paint with them and paint with them and paint with them. But like you said, little by little, start, giving them
Yeah,
some of that
I
responsibility.
don't hate that idea. The one challenge that I have found working with painters in that exact situation is that when they hire their first painter or two, they see that drop in their gross margin. They see that drop in profitability, and they're not making 80% profit on a job anymore, right? They're making 50% or 40%. And now it's like, oh crap, I need to be doing twice as much work in order to make the same amount of money. But that's the point, right? The point is that you can produce more and make the same amount of money, but you're now working less. That's the trade-off that you're making. And it's hard to do, and it takes guts to do, right? And not everyone is capable of it, right? You need to have a pretty, decent and emotional quotient, emotional intelligence, in order to actually, have the desire to and successfully make that leap. But it does suck. You're going to make less money for a short period of time. But if you know your numbers and you have a way to track and see how much profit you're making, how much profit you could be making once you hit, two painters full time working for you while you're off the tools, that's the light at the end of the tunnel. It's not very far away from that first step, but there is a trust gap that you need to go through, and it will suck for a little while if you're not prepared for it.
100%. Love it.
Yeah. Yeah. And the next level, right, is bringing on that production manager, is, getting to that place where you're at right now,
Or if
3
you're
years.
not a natural salesperson, bring in someone that do sales. I
Yeah.
think
It's one of those
it's the
two.
same.
It's
If
one
you
of
want
those.
to, if you love producing, if you love, like, I know some people that are just producers and project managers that found a salesperson because they don't want to do that sales part.
I actually heard a good tip. I haven't tried this yet. But a good tip is, like, you can potentially partner with an interior designer in your area.
Okay.
Interior
Yep.
designers aren't typically super busy if there's one that's
Yep.
self-employed, and teach them production rates, teach them how to quote. They're already talking to homeowners. They already know
Yeah.
inside homes. They know kind of how things flow. Teach them how to estimate painting, and all of a sudden they have a side gig.
That's not a bad idea at all. No,
Yeah.
my color consultant upsells. Like, I mean, she probably upsells what we pay her monthly based on just her knowledge. Like, it's amazing how I'll offer something to customers and then she'll offer it and she'll get it. And I'll just be like, I told you so. Yeah. But
Yeah.
it's pretty cool.
So going back to that guy who's a single painter trying to go to the next level, trying to get off the tools, you need to get clear in your numbers, right? If you're not clear in your numbers, if you're producing work and just depositing money into your one bank account and taking out money when you feel like you need to pay your bills and stuff like that, and hopefully
Yeah.
there's money left over at the end of the day, you'll never get out of that cycle. You got to get clear in your numbers. You got to have, even if it's a simple spreadsheet on job costing. If you
Right.
can get to that next level, find a bookkeeper, get a monthly P&L, right? Get a monthly cash flow statement. It sounds daunting, but it's not. It's really, really simple to get someone to put together a cash flow statement for you. You got to see
Yep.
how much money you're making. It's so important so you can make those decisions confidently.
100%. And when you feel like, oh, can I hire? And you say in your head no, because you're scared that you won't be able to keep them busy. Just think like you found enough work to keep you busy. So, there's I think you'll be all right. That's a big thing I hear as well.
Yeah. But then, then when it comes time to scale, you need scalable marketing systems. You need to know how to get leads. You need to know how to close jobs. You need to know what your average job size is, how much it
Yeah. In other
costs
words, you
you.
need a coach. So get with Mike.
You need a coach, you need a software, and you need what was the other one?
You need a marketer,
A marketing agency. Yeah, at some point.
marketing agency. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
When you get to a certain level, for sure. Bootstrap. If you're less than 20K a month, don't need an agency. I would recommend you can do it yourself. Once you get above that level, start delegating. some of the marketing aspects can be hugely valuable.
Oh yeah.
Oh, and you also need a paintbrush and a dream.
And a dream. Gotta have a vision.
Sweet.
No, people are making killer money in the painting business, and it's like,
Absolutely.
I mean, it's
Are
a
all these
crazy
marketers
business.
out here starting painting businesses?
Yeah, I mean, then they get smacked in the mouth, bro. You know, they
Oh
don't
yeah.
know. They get whipped.
yeah.
You know, because they just see like, dude, this isn't what I thought it was. You know, now I got to take it easy on my clients because I'm always like, oh, they can't. You know, this ain't no joke, man. You got to earn it. Oh.
Yeah, it's a grind. You don't know what you're doing, but you know, you figure it out and you keep moving forward. That's the thing. There's always another customer, right? You might burn a bridge,
Always.
but there's always more customers to come.
Oh yeah.
That was great, man. Thanks for coming on. That was a fun conversation. I didn't even know where that was going, but I liked where it ended up.
Yeah, just off the top, man. You know, love what you're doing, bro. Thanks as always for bringing me on. My final word, which is, you know, anyone listening to this that's on the fence about coaching or software or marketing, it's just important that you keep listening to these conversations to realize that there's certain leaders in the space that truly do care about your best interests. I truly think Mike is one of those people. So, you know, in terms of coaching, you know, you're in good hands with him. I've actually personally been a part of your coaching sessions, which was extremely enlightening. Just the people in there being a part of conversations. Don't look at the investment, look at the return. What Mike, if I came up to you, Mike, and said, okay, Mike, if I invest in your coaching business, what type of return could I get? Would you easily say it's 10x?
Oh man. Monthly,
right?
Yeah.
So that it's weird to think like, well, why it's just at the end of the day, like even with Dripjobs, when I sell it, it's like we sell things with the expectation that you're going to get 10x the value in return. That's our standard. So, you know, you want to be with people that have that sort of standard, that are backed by reviews, backed by word of mouth. I think, again, every painting business should have a coach, should have a software, and should have a marketer. Having those three things in your back pocket puts you at the same level as a franchise coming into your town. Like you couldn't do that before, but now you can. Franchises coming into town have a built-in software that's proprietary. They have coaching and they have mentorship, mindset, all that. And they have marketing done for them. And you could pretty much put those resources together without a $50,000 buy-in and a 9% royalty. So stop playing, you know, stop holding on to your money. You got to let it go.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny when, you know, in that same breath, when people say Dripjobs is expensive, right? It's like, okay, is it really expensive, right? Or is it just like if it saves you 1 hour a month, it pays for itself, right? 1 or 2 hours a month, but it should be saving you that every day.
You know, at the end of the day, we hear that too, and it sucks because, you know, the reality of it is it's just in proportion to value, right? Like, and if you feel as though it's expensive, maybe you just haven't had an opportunity to see all the value that it offers. And at the end of the day, you can't quantify time. So, you know, some people value their time more than others, you know, and that's what our thing is saving you time and making you money.
I think you can quantify time. It's just everyone quantifies it differently.
Yeah, well, you can't put a value to it. Like for me, like some people don't care as much about saving time as I do.
True. But the whole employee model, I know we're going a little overtime here, but the whole employee model is about quantifying time, right? But I guess we're entrepreneurs or business owners, so it's a lot harder to quantify.
True. Very true.
Thanks, brother. Thank you. Great conversation. Till next time.
Man. Oh, yeah. See you.
Thanks for listening to the Painter Growth Podcast. If you want to grow your painting business, go to www.paintergrowth.com or click on the top link in the description. Talk soon.